Here's my final thought, and here's one of the worst kept secrets in Washington. Even before the Senate has voted on impeachment, there is zero chance the president would be removed from office. That from Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who also promised total coordination with the White House and Trump's defense team. The Senate vote will come sometime next month after an expected short trial and maybe no witnesses. Trump today claimed he's seen polling evidence that he'll come out of his impeachment trial with an even better chance for re-election.
Well, I've heard Lindsey Graham, who's terrific, and I heard his statement, and I like that. And I'll do whatever I want. Look, we did nothing wrong.
You might recall that we pointed out right here more than once that the majority vote probably won't decide next year's election. A majority 270 electoral college votes are needed to win the presidency. Trump lost the majority vote in 2016, but he carried a lot more states than Hillary Clinton. He beat her in the electoral college where states matter most by a landslide, 304 electors to 227. One political observer pointed out to me recently that he's seen numbers that show Donald Trump is very much in play in those swing states right now. He could lose Pennsylvania and Michigan, according to my source, and still squeeze out a win if he holds on to Wisconsin and Maine. The impeachment won't take Donald Trump down. Democrats had better get their people to the polls and take no state for granted like Hillary Clinton did back in 2016. Tell me what you think of my final thoughts. We're on social media. Just be sure to use the hashtag, the Q&A. I'm Bruce Johnson. Have a great weekend.